The CDC changes its stance on masking in schools, saying universal mask wearing is recommended. How Brazos Valley school districts are getting ready for the fall semester. Plus, the peak viewing days in a famous meteor shower is coming up. We'll tell you how and when to catch it.
And it's been another hot day around here with partly cloudy skies. Will we see any rain chances, or does it just stay hot? Your 25 News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Naya Gonzalez. Democrats from the Texas House of Representatives are backing Austin Representative Vicki Goodwin's proposal to give school districts the choice to reinstate mask mandates and virtual learning. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat spoke to one school district about their concerns as we approach the new school year.
The school year hasn't even started yet, and Caldwell ISD already has more teachers who've tested positive for COVID this month than this time last year.
All 5 of mine that have COVID right now are unvaccinated. And that is pretty well what the research is saying, that the people that are going to the hospital very, very ill are not vaccinated.
Superintendent Andrew Peters says less than half his staff are vaccinated, but the school district does not require them to do so.
I feel very responsible for 2,000 lives every day that come into my school buildings, and I want to protect them. I also don't want to overreact, but right now the numbers are causing me some concern.
Rosa Leva, a parent who also works for Caldwell ISD, is still okay sending her kids back for the new school year.
We do everything we can to continue with students receiving their education. I feel my children are safe. I feel safe coming to work.
I would still recommend, like I said, masks while we're in school, especially in crowded classrooms, to really help put a barrier of protection. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot we can do to prevent the spread of COVID in the schools.
With an executive order banning government entities, including public schools, from mandating masks and no option for virtual learning, the school district feels their hands are tied.
The governor needs to stay out of it and let local school boards make decisions for the local communities.
That's why State Rep Richard Raymond and 31 other lawmakers are asking Governor Greg Abbott to give school districts the choice.
I guess we can't give children the vaccine because they're too young. What we do know is the mask, which is essentially a vaccine, we can give to the children, and it does work.
I really wish that there were at least some guidelines and saying, well, if this happens, we're going to do this.
In the meantime, Peter says the district has its own plan, which includes closing down if COVID cases in the district exceed 5%. Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
And now let's take a close look at vaccinations here locally, across the state, and nationally. Right now, Brazos County is reporting 1,807 vaccines administered. Right there, first doses 103,000. And 89,000 are fully vaccinated. Now let's look at our percentages here. You can see 56% first doses, fully vaccinated, we're at 48%. Now statewide here for the state of Texas, you can see first doses we're at 66%, fully vaccinated 56%, and nationally those percentages there, first doses are at 63% and fully vaccinated there at 56%. Meanwhile, the DSHS is partnering with the Texas A&M Health Science Center to give money to Texas communities to help promote the vaccine. The two groups will be giving out between $50,000 and $150,000 to organizations pushing vaccine education. DSHS says the grants will allow programs to expand their efforts in hard-to-reach communities, hopefully increasing vaccination numbers across the state. Bell County health officials say they're seeing a growing number of COVID hospitalizations among pregnant women. Dr. Jessica Ehrig from Baylor Scott and White Health says they're seeing an increase not only in hospitalizations, but also pregnant women having to be intubated. She says the number of pregnant women being intubated is increasing by nearly 20%.
What we're seeing based on our most recent numbers is about what we were having is previously in the pandemic is only about 5% of pregnant women that got COVID were being intubated. What we're seeing right now based on our numbers here, and it's what's being seen across the country, is that number is getting closer to 25%, 20 to 25%. So that's the concerning part, is that these pregnant moms are getting more severely affected.
She says due to low oxygen levels in pregnant women, preterm birth, preterm labor, and miscarriages are all possibilities. Meanwhile, Baylor Scott & White is going to require its employees to be fully vaccinated by October 1st. In a statement to 25 News, the hospital group cites the rapidly rising case counts and the highly contagious Delta variant combined with the start of flu season as reasons behind that mandate. A Corsicana pastor says his fight against COVID-19 has changed his perspective on getting vaccinated. The North Texas pastor has been battling the virus for more than 20 days. He admits he was not vaccinated, but now plans to do so after his near-death experience.
There were some moments in here that I had a hard time taking a breath. And I do not tell you this lightly. I fought for my life.
Danny Reeves is used to preaching the gospel every Sunday at First Baptist Church in Corsicana, but the last few weeks, he has been the one learning.
God puts us through these moments to teach us lessons. And I didn't mean to be cavalier. I didn't mean to be overconfident. But, you know, there's a lot of people just like me that haven't gotten the vaccine.
Reeves started feeling body aches and other symptoms of COVID in early July, testing positive a few days later. About a week later, his breathing became so labored, he was rushed to the hospital. At Baylor Medical Center in Dallas, his blood oxygen dropped to dangerous levels.
The doctor came in and said, "You're going to the ICU," and hovered over me and said that I needed to have a reality check, that I could die.
Reeves spent 2 days in the ICU, his chance of survival fluctuating by the hour. At one point, doctors told him he could be in danger of needing a lung transplant.
I cried in here. I had emotional moments in here. I had regret in here. You know, I recognized that I had been a bit cavalier, and that almost cost me.
He made a remarkable turnaround, though, crediting his faith, support from his church, and his medical team.
If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And you really ought to consider getting the vaccine. I'm not going to tell you to go do it. You have the choice and the right to make that choice.
Reeves says doctors at Baylor helped clear up some misinformation for him concerning the vaccine, and now he plans to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
And I've been taught a lesson. And I'm big enough and humble enough to say I was wrong. And if my survival and my story can be a blessing to others, then I pray it is.
Reeves is still recovering from the virus, but says he will be cleared to get vaccinated in about 30 days. He urges anyone who has any doubts about the vaccine to talk to their doctor, a doctor that they trust, to find out more information. Texas A&M students, listen up. Some changes are being put in place this fall when it comes to parking on campus. KRHD News reporter Rebecca Fiedler has more on what you need to know.
If you park on the Texas A&M campus, you're probably familiar with one of these. Well, parking is changing now, and the university will be looking at your license plate, not your rearview mirror. Whether it be in a designated lot or garage, students and faculty will now be given access to parking via their vehicle's license plates. Starting this fall semester, parking staff will be constantly driving through these areas to scan plates using camera technology in their university vehicles. No longer will they check for a plastic emblem hanging over a dashboard.
We've actually been using this technology for many years to run the license plates and see if we have any overdue citations or things like that on campus.
Transportation Services has put into place the option to designate multiple cars for one permit. Though several license plates can be listed for one shared permit, only one vehicle can be designated to park at a given time by denoting the vehicle through Texas A&M's website. For those parking in garages, the university will issue handheld devices that will open gates. Faculty and staff will also still have the option to open garage gates with their ID cards or toll tags. Reporting in College Station, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
Well, keep your eyes up over the next few weeks as a popular light show will be lighting up the sky. A meteor shower will be returning to the skies over the northern hemisphere, and showers can now be seen on clear nights. Although the shower began on July 17th, experts forecast the best night for viewing will be August 11th and 12th. On peak nights, between 50 and 80 meteors can be seen. And the best part here is you don't need any special equipment like telescopes to actually see the showers in the sky.
One of the nice things about Meteor Shower is that it doesn't require any fancy astronomy equipment. You don't need a telescope. You don't need binoculars. This is one of those cases where really less is more, because you want to be able to see as much of the sky as possible. You do need dark skies. You do need to try to get away from light pollution if you can. That will only help.
Experts say the best time to watch the meteor shower at its peak will be between 2 and 4 in the morning.
The CDC and Dr. Anthony Fauci still say a COVID booster shot is not needed at this time, and Americans should not be seeking out one on their own. But Pfizer is testing one on the Delta variant to prepare for when it is needed. In data released today, Pfizer says a third shot created 5 times more antibodies against the Delta variant in people 18 to 55. There were 11 times more antibodies for those over the age of 65. Now, these findings have not yet been peer-reviewed or published. Another push to get more workers vaccinated. Federal employees who are not vaccinated could have to submit regular COVID testing. President Biden is expected to make an official announcement tomorrow. It's similar to a recently imposed New York mandate on its state employees. The VA also just announced it's requiring frontline healthcare workers to be fully vaccinated within the next 2 months. New research shows which hospital workers are at increased risk of contracting COVID. People working the COVID wards had nearly 4 times the risk of being infected. But the research found no patient to healthcare worker transmission clusters. They did identify 3 possible healthcare worker to worker transmission clusters. The study suggests more consideration needs to be placed on infection prevention practices between employees. With increasing pressure for vaccine mandates for healthcare workers, there may be other simpler, effective methods to encourage employees to get the shots.
Very focused and intentional use of messaging can be helpful in encouraging vaccination, even with something as little and kind of small and as cheap as an email.
Henry Santos is a scientist on the Behavioral Insights team with Geisinger Health. It's a large health system in Pennsylvania with 8 hospitals and other clinics and just under 30,000 employees. Back in January, when healthcare workers were first eligible for the vaccine, the health system sent 36 general emails over 5 weeks informing staff they could register. At the time, only 41% of employees had. Then the Insights team tailored 2 specific emails with different principles of behavioral science. One focused in on social norms, pointing out how many other people had gotten the vaccine, while the other focused on the risk of vaccine side effects versus possible complications from getting the virus. They found both emails were equally effective at boosting vaccine registration among staff by more than 3%.
So we think that we went on top of that by really carefully tailoring the message to encourage people, to kind of give them the pieces of information that they need to make this decision.
The 2 more specifically crafted emails were also personally addressed. They came from a trusted source of authority, the chief of infectious diseases, and they had a sense of urgency at the time, pointing out vaccines would soon be made available to more people. Now, Santos says this method can be easily replicated. About 70% of Geisinger Health staff are vaccinated today. Well, many office buildings are sitting empty as companies decide not to return. How an idea to turn those buildings into housing instead would work.
Generation X was affected the most by unemployment during the pandemic. That's according to a survey by Generation, a nonprofit that looks at employment. The survey found around the world it was more difficult for people over the age of 45 to find a job and keep it. The majority of Gen X workers say they believed their age was an obstacle in getting a job. Delivery apps are starting to offer more services beyond just takeout. Uber Eats just announced that it'll start delivering flowers. This comes about a year after DoorDash started making deliveries for 7-Eleven and Petco. The same companies also offer deliveries from Macy's and Walmart. Non-restaurant deliveries make up about 5% of sales for both Uber Eats and DoorDash. Experts say that number is only expected to grow. And housing advocates are warning that upcoming evictions could spark another wave of COVID cases. The eviction moratorium is set to expire this week. An analysis by the Social Housing Chronicle shows millions of renters who are at risk of eviction are living in COVID hotspots. Another analysis by the Jane Family Institute found that 11 million people who are behind on rent are living in counties with rising COVID numbers. The National Low Income Housing Coalition has asked the Biden administration to extend the moratorium. And now let's get another check on our weather with Matt.
And we are looking at some clouds across the region for today. It has been hot as well here in the Brazos Valley. As we check out our clouds and radar, you can see a few high clouds rolling in from the southeast. Other than that, most of the thunderstorm activity has been away from the Brazos Valley, just to the west as you head back into the hill country, and then a little cluster of thunderstorms southeast of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That may clip closer to I-35 near Waco, Temple, Killeen later, but I think that stays to the north of us. We're kind of a little donut hole for us here. And as we check out our future track, doesn't appear that too much is going to be happening for tonight, even though it does have a few isolated showers and storms. So this is 7 o'clock Thursday morning. Things are pretty quiet. During the afternoon, see a few popcorn thunderstorms here or there. So about a 20% chance that you'll get wet as we head into Thursday on into Friday. Probably more of the same. Isolated thunderstorms will be possible into Friday afternoon. But again, rain chances aren't impressive at all, about 20%. So consider yourself lucky if you happen to find one of those. One thing I can guarantee, it's going to stay muggy. Temperatures will be into the mid to upper 70s as we get into the morning hours. And then as we head into the afternoon for your Thursday, how about some mid 90s, but it'll feel like 100 to 105 when you factor in the humidity. So another hot day on the way for the Brazos Valley. And as we look at your forecast here, we are going to continue with at least isolated storms the next couple of afternoons. Highs into the mid 90s, which is close to normal. And then 97s Saturday and Sunday. I do think an isolated storm threat starts to creep in Sunday afternoon. A front will start to approach from the north, and that could bring us some scattered thunderstorm chances as we make our way into Monday. We'll go high temperatures right around 94 degrees there. Notice what happens thereafter. We start to see that slip on down on us as we go to a 20 to 30% chance of rain Tuesday and Wednesday. Highs will start to creep back up as well from the lower 90s back up into the middle 90s by the end of next week, but we may have another isolated storm threat as we head toward the next weekend. So not the greatest of rain chances, but it could just be hot and dry all the way through. So at least there's a little something to talk about.
All 50 states are offering emergency rental assistance, and now the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is making it easier to find. The agency just launched a new tool prompting you to submit your state, your county, and tribal area if applicable. Links to rental assistance programs in your area are then provided. The American Rescue Plan included billions of dollars in rental assistance that will continue to be available after the CDC's eviction moratorium expires at the end of the month. More information is provided at consumerfinance.gov/rent-help. Well, office buildings across the country are sitting empty. Vacancy rates in major cities have gone up since last year and more than doubled since 2019 in places like San Francisco. That's according to the commercial real estate firm Avison Young. Los Angeles is at an all-time high at almost 18% vacancy, and Houston has reached a record high of nearly 23%. The overall national rate is 17%, but now the question is what to do with these buildings.
Given that we have a housing shortage, the natural thought would be to see if there could be some conversion of empty office spaces into housing units.
Dr. Yun with the National Association of Realtors says although this would be the most logical route to take, it's not an easy process to convert an office building into housing. So the chances of the housing being affordable is low without some sort of government help.
Sometimes the numbers simply do not work after considering all the cost that is involved. And that is why it is important to have a tax credit for the developers or possible extra funding.
The only thing that wouldn't really need to be changed is parking. To convert these office buildings into housing, interiors would need to be completely redone and a lot more bathrooms would need to be installed. Dr. Yun says empty office buildings are typically leased to a new business to use. But with many companies making work from home permanent, that's not really happening. In the past, office buildings have rarely been turned into housing, but with these factors in place, it could be more of a possibility. Well, you don't have to be a fan of boxing to understand its power as a metaphor in life. To see a challenge as an opponent and face it head on, no matter what. Well, Chris Stewart met with a group using the sport to show that a disability won't back them into a corner.
That's just the start, just to give you that confidence. There's many aspects of fighting and what boxing does for you. You just apply it in every area of your life.
Every punch Donahue Fields throws is part of the fight against what life has thrown at him.
I see the world differently. The world sees me differently.
For nearly 2 decades, he lived without a wheelchair, without knowing how quickly everything can change.
At 19, I was coming out of a store one night. It was like 2 in the morning. So a group of guys were fighting on the corner, and that's when I hear just pow, 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 coming from my left. And I look, all I see is this muzzle with flashes, just, and I ran like everyone else did. And I thought I tripped, but come to find out I was hit. I just didn't feel it. I didn't know. I didn't know I was shot. I tried to get up, my legs wouldn't move. I thought maybe it was the fear. So I tried to psych myself, like, get up, just get up, run, just move. But they would not move. They just would not.
He went from standing at 6'5" to living each day from a different perspective.
Every day I would tell myself I can't live like this anymore. It's just too much.
A stray bullet hit his spinal cord and his legs had to be amputated. Then within months, he says his dog was shot and killed right in front of him.
I'm out of here, so I tried to pop a whole bottle of OxyContin. And next thing you know, I woke up in ER, ICU, tube down my throat.
But in boxing, he found an outlet and new outlook.
Jab and right cross. That's it.
Boxing, punching, is all about technique. Some people see power, some people see speed, but right in the mix of all that, the fine details is the proper technique, the proper way to do it.
This is officially known as adaptive boxing.
Bang, 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 bang. See it and move.
Over here, they're like, oh my God, you shouldn't do that. You're disabled. Why are you doing that? You're broken already. You're fragile already.
That's it.
If somebody come at you with disbelief and you prove them wrong, but you mostly say, I'm gonna prove myself first, and then you prove them wrong.
Since birth, cerebral palsy has limited Tyrell Eddie's ability to walk, but the limits stop there.
I was always a physical person, so just having that extra outlet just created a whole nother opportunity for me.
Push off.
While boxing is a sport, fighting can be a necessary life skill.
Sorry to say, in a vulnerable position, no matter what we do. No matter what we do, everything is against us, So we have to be able to adapt faster than anybody else.
When the Paralympics take place next month in Tokyo, after the Olympic Games, adaptive boxing will not be included. Donahue hopes that will change for future games. But for him, this sport's impact is less about what a punch does to an opponent and more about the impact it can have on the life of the person who is throwing it.
Even if you don't go in the ring, if it builds your self-esteem, your confidence up to where you can go and get that job you want and go to school, that career, go out on that date, talk to that girl, talk to that guy, say no to somebody. Don't be afraid, don't let your chair define you, because the world has a great job at doing that itself. When they see you, they see chair, 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 chair. You do more than that.
In New York City, I'm Chris Stewart reporting.
Chris, thank you for that report. Well, transporting organs across the country can be a bit of a challenge, especially when flight routes are cut. How changing flight schedules could potentially help save more lives. The Biden administration is moving to better protect infrastructure from cyber threats. This story tops the news feed. The president signed an order today directing the Departments of Homeland Security and Commerce to develop cybersecurity performance goals for critical infrastructure. The orders also promote a voluntary public-private partnership to protect its core sectors. Well, Simone Biles will no longer compete in the final individual all-around competition. U.S. Gymnastics tweeted the news of her withdrawal today, saying they are wholeheartedly in support of Biles' decision and applaud her bravery in prioritizing her well-being. Well, the University of Pennsylvania's top-ranking business school is marking a milestone. This fall, 52% of MBA enrollees will be women. It's the highest number of female candidates in the Wharton School's 140-year history. The school's MBA program becomes the first out of 7 elite schools to admit more women than men. Well, renting an apartment on campus is becoming out of reach for more students. The factors that have more people moving to college towns, pushing students out this fall.
Feeding Texas says food insecurity is seen in 1 in every 7 Texans. Educators see the struggle among students every year. Thanks to community partnerships, schools in the Brazos Valley can offer extra help to those students. Caldwell Elementary is sending kids pre-K through 3rd grade home with extra snacks in their backpacks. Grade levels after that get food from school pantries like the one offered at A&M Consolidated High School in College Station.
We do see that there are kids, certain ones that they really rely on the school lunch program and on these backpacks. I mean, and those are who we try to target.
Sometimes it's families or students that just need something to get them through a couple of days. So the level of need varies.
According to program coordinators, 40 students receive snack backpacks. According to Feeding Texas, 20% of children in the Lone Star State experience hunger. And remember, our Feed the Need drive ends on Friday. To donate, head on over to KRHDnews.com. Well, UT Austin's move to the SEC could mean big problems for some Texas communities, as much as $500 million each year. That's according to new data from the Perryman Group. It says Baylor, TCU, and Texas Tech football may be left behind by the move. That means the economies of Waco, Fort Worth, and Lubbock could lose millions and thousands of jobs. CEO Ray Perryman says communities are scrambling to save their football economies.
And the schools are going to do what they can to protect the situation they have and or try to get the best situation they can going forward. We're in the middle of an earthquake and it's happening. We're not going to stop it, but we can do everything we can to minimize the damage from it.
He says media rights are one of the biggest factors on the Texas-Oklahoma move. Smaller football programs have less opportunity for airtime and donor cash without big-time matchups. Meanwhile, Simone Biles has withdrawn from the final individual all-around competition at the Tokyo Olympics to focus on her mental health. This comes after the 24-year-old stepped away from the team competition on Tuesday, citing mental health concerns. USA Gymnastics says Biles will continue to be evaluated daily to determine if she'll take part in next week's individual event finals, and wholeheartedly supports Biles' decision. They say her courage shows once again why she's a role model for so many. And the International Olympic Committee is offering athletes mental health resources. Psychologists and psychiatrists are available at the Olympic Village. The IOC has also established a mental health helpline, which will continue to be available months after the Games. According to ThriveWorks, 1 in 3 elite athletes suffer from anxiety and depression. Now here's a look at the current medal count. Host country Japan with 13 golds. Team USA with 31 total medals so far with 11 golds. Competition continues today in Tokyo. Medals will be awarded in rowing and swimming events.
Starting next week, England will allow fully vaccinated U.S. and European travelers to skip quarantine. This story tops the news feed. The Transport Secretary announced today the move comes to help reunite people living in these countries with their families. Travelers will still need to do their usual pre-departure COVID test before arriving. Delta Airlines is eliminating fees for changes to basic economy trips through the rest of the year. This comes as travelers increase and passengers wait longer times to reach agents. Delta says it's also hiring more than 5,000 people to help with record call volumes and other services. Well, young children are one step closer to a COVID vaccine. Pfizer announcing it could release vaccination data on children ages 5 to 11 years old by the end of September. This is a change from an original announcement, pushing the age for emergency authorization of the vaccine from 2 to now 5 years old. Well, you may have a family member going through this right now. The hot housing market and changes during the pandemic are making apartments unaffordable for college students looking for places to live this fall. 34% of all college students say they can't afford rent in their college town. That's according to a new survey out today from Realtor.com.
Due to remote work, due to affordability, and just as importantly, due to quality of life. All these factors which have caused many people to move from coastal big cities are now making it very difficult for students to find an affordable place.
Realtor.com economists say with everyone from retirees to remote workers moving to college towns, supply, which was already an issue, will continue to get worse. Students are facing lots of competition and having to look at multiple places to find a spot.
Even in the local market, there are limited opportunities. When we look at construction, particularly for apartments or homes over the last 10 years, we are severely undersupplied. And this is not, particular to any geography, rather it's widespread. So I would say that for the time being, the challenges will remain well into this fall semester.
The median national rent price in June was more than $1,500. That's about 8% higher than 1 year ago.
Larger units tend to have rents that are up considerably more. Why I say that, that's relevant, because for many college students, they're not necessarily going to look at a studio or even a 1-bedroom. Many times they will take 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom homes, even 4-bedroom sometimes, and just take on extra roommates. And it's those very units which have gone up tremendously in the past year.
For a 2-bedroom apartment, the cost was around $180 extra this June compared to a year ago. 19% of students in the survey say their parents are helping them pay rent this year when they didn't need their help last year. Others are choosing to move home to save money. Well, a growing number of historically black colleges and universities are clearing students' account balances so they can continue or finish school. Clark Atlanta University is one of the latest to do this for 2020 and 2021 semesters. They're using federal funding from the CARES Act. Nearly a dozen other HBCUs have made similar moves, according to a tally by the United Negro College Fund and Wall Street Journal. In the meantime, we're getting a new picture of how much the pandemic has been impacting progress among younger students. New research out today looked at test scores for 3rd through 8th graders between fall of 2020 and spring of this year. It found on average students made learning gains, but at a lower rate compared to before the pandemic. The largest drops were in math and reading. Well, losing a family member to COVID can mean grieving with sorting through years of belongings.
I remember standing in the living room and looking at everything and going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
How estate companies are now working overtime to help.
And now let's get another check on our weather with Matt.
And we have seen a weak disturbance as expected make its way across Texas, with the highest concentration of rain back here into the hill country and over into the Permian Basin, southeast of Midland, Odessa. We are seeing nice onshore flow. We just don't get any showers and thunderstorms right around here today. And we may see a few as we head over the next couple of days. A lot of it's been to the north and west of us, however. As we check out our future track, this is overdoing it a little bit for tonight. But as we head into the morning hours, looks like things will be pretty quiet for us. During the afternoon tomorrow, again, an isolated thunderstorm threat, about a 20% chance you'll get wet. And the same can be said as we head into Friday. Quiet in the morning, maybe a few isolated thunderstorms into the afternoon. Don't count on it, but some folks may get a downpour in their backyard, while others will just dream about it and see it off in the distance there. As we check out your forecast for tonight, temperatures into the 70s. It's going to be another humid night, which is very typical of this time of year. We do have those heat index values even into the low 80s. Even in the morning hours, and then it warms up into the afternoon. Those mid-90s will feel like 100 to 105 when you factor in that humidity, and again, maybe an isolated thunderstorm or two across the region. And checking out that 10-day forecast showing isolated thunderstorms with highs right around 95, 96 degrees the next couple of days. Saturday at 97 degrees. Same for Sunday. Then here comes Monday. We have a chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms here as a front moves down into the area. Highs will be into the mid-90s, so not a lot of cooling with this front, but it keeps us below 100, and it may take the edge off the heat just a little bit with a few of those scattered showers and storms around. Tuesday and Wednesday, a slow decrease, and temperatures start to increase once again.
The Delta variant has people worried about the COVID restrictions that could return. That's especially true for those who work in addiction recovery. Forrest Sanders is looking into the effort to prevent relapses from starting again with more uncertain times possibly ahead.
I always had this idea that if you had an office, that was the sign
you had made it.
Now that Yolanda Manus has office space, is that how she feels?
No, that's when the work really begins. But I did put some things in that brought joy to my spirit.
And Yolanda's favorite is this, a little picture by her niece Paige of different kinds of women, all queens. To know why this picture means so much, you have to know Yolanda's story.
I grew up in a very rural community. I grew up in a very dysfunctional home that led into methamphetamine use.
Yolanda felt her addiction had become so deep, there was no way of getting through it to the other side.
I literally had no home, really no friends. My body was completely being destroyed. I thought, this is your life.
But changing course, Yolanda arrived to Mending Hearts, a Nashville-based residential treatment service for women.
I wanted you guys to come in with 3 items that show me that you're not the person you were in your addiction.
I brought my alarm clock because I have a routine now.
And it's at Mending Hearts, Yolanda today has that little office with that special picture from a niece, where she now works as Associate Clinical Director. But Yolanda has a new worry. Downtowns across the country are full again. It's so different now from how it all was. In April 2020, a time when the pandemic left businesses locked up and city streets quiet, when the country was under stay-at-home orders, stress, anxiety, and depression spiked, and by June 2020, the CDC reported 13% of Americans were starting or increasing substance abuse. Mending Hearts did what they had to do, holding their recovery meetings through Zoom. But Yolanda says she knows from her experience the importance of in-person meetings.
For a person in early recovery, the opposite of addiction is connection.
Though the meetings are back in person now, Mending Hearts is watching as the CDC again recommends masks indoors in high transmission areas, reporting the Delta variant is now making up 83% of all new COVID cases.
More than anything that I've heard from them is, are they going to shut our meetings down?
We can't pray that it not come. We have to think that it's coming.
Trina Frierson is the founder and CEO of Mending Hearts. She says in fighting relapses as numbers rise for the Delta variant, she's working closely with medical centers for guidance.
We have the ability to test on site. We have the ability to vaccinate our women here.
And Yolanda says there's a key thing to be taught to anyone in recovery.
Hey, we've already been through something. You'll get through it. You've already got evidence you can.
It's that importance of connection in this time that's bringing so many to this bridge for National Women Touched by Addiction Day. These are people who have lived with addiction, people who love someone who lived with addiction.
Recovery ain't for the punks, right? When you get clean, you reach back and you help somebody else.
And perhaps going into more uncertain times in the pandemic, Yolanda says she's grateful for a special picture in her office and for the artist niece standing with her today. With people there for support, Yolanda believes no matter how deep the addiction, there's a bridge to cross it.
The secret is out. Guess what? We do recover, right? I love you guys.
In Nashville, Tennessee, I'm Forrest Sanders.
Forrest, thank you for that. Well, a coalition of civil rights groups is bringing attention to inconsistencies in hate crime laws. A new report published by the Movement Advancement Project shows the gaps in a state-by-state analysis. For example, when it comes to LGBTQ hate crimes, 13 states do not cover sexual orientation or gender identity. 11 cover sexual orientation, but not gender identity. And 4 states have no laws on this at all. Countless families are struggling with what to do with their loved ones' possessions after their death from COVID. Dan Grossman found estate sale companies have been working overtime to help out.
Let's go dig through people's stuff. Without knowing the details of what Sarah Skinner and Melissa Sloganhoop do, they're lively. These are actually really cute. One might even say buoyant attitudes towards their work as estate saleswomen could come off as crass. Every day. But in this line of work, which lately we've been talking about how we're gonna
give ourselves time instead of working 7 days a week.
It's the only way they've been able to make it through the day.
Very busy that we've actually had to expand our operation and hire more people and get a bigger crew, and we still can't take all the phone calls.
Since January, Sarah, the owner, has only been able to take 3 days off from work.
Look how pretty that is.
Same with Melissa, her manager, as they explore the intimate details of lives taken, many from COVID.
Oh yeah, we actually find treasures that the homeowners don't even know half of the time, and we have to let them know.
Lives they will only learn of through these belongings.
I mean, it's business for us, but it's also somebody's house, home, belongings, and loved one, usually. So we are very sensitive and do everything we can to respect that and comfort and be a human, you know.
It's that part, that last part.
But it was hard. That was difficult to let some things go. Yeah.
That led Diane Kraft to the pair after her 92-year-old aunt, Phyllis White, died from COVID in a nursing home this past March.
I remember walking in her house the first time after she had passed away, and I remember standing in the living room and looking at everything and going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Details. Knowing what to do with so many personal ones was tough. Some of those things, like her old photos or even perfume that reminded Diane of her aunt's smell, brought tears.
And she had this 1993 Hornet car.
Others brought elated joy.
And it was recently sold, and the guy that bought it is going to name it Phyllis. Maybe someday we'll see this car, this 1973 white Hornet, running around on the streets named Phyllis. And that just makes me smile. Yeah, that's a great example of something finding a good home.
There you go, you can throw those in here.
It is those moments, those feelings that keep Sarah and Melissa going, making those extended stretches without rest worth it.
Yep.
It's also what makes the inability to take every call because of the volume so difficult.
Oh no, it's all of us. I even hear a lot of times from our clients that they called several people and they can't get a call back because everybody is so busy and so full.
With COVID still very much present, there is no telling when things will lighten up, when these days will lessen in number.
Kind of touches your heart a little bit, you know, when you're putting stuff out and you know that was somebody's loved one.
When the attention to these personal details can finally allow these women to rest.
As long as your heart's in the right place, so is your motor.
I'm Dan Grossman.
Thanks for joining us for Krhd News at 6. You can catch more 25 News tonight at 10. Until then, have a good evening.